Welcome to this quick Educator introduction to the Cadi Career Clusters. My name is Lucy and I'm from Study Work Grow, and in this session we're going to be covering a little bit about what the clusters are and how they work. Then we're going to look at how you can find out which clusters you're in, and then finally we're going to look at some things that you might want to think about for ways that you can implement the clusters within your own practice. So the first thing to point out is that there's a bit of a problem, which is that we know that around half of all young people, half of all teenagers, actually expect to work in just one of 10 popular jobs. This is a problem because there are so many more jobs that are available out there. Most of us don't end up working in one of these top 10 popular jobs, but their thinking is so narrow at this point and they can't kind of see what else is out there. So we've developed the clusters to help them think outside the box, start thinking about their strengths, their skills, their interests in a slightly different way. These are the 10 most popular jobs that I was talking about a minute ago. This data comes from the OECD and it's from 2022 from their latest analysis. And they show that there are some real commonalities there in those top 10 jobs, both for boys and for girls, and it is very gender biased still. And that these jobs haven't actually changed since they started asking this question about 20 years ago now. And I would say they probably haven't really changed for much before that either. And there aren't any jobs of the future in these jobs. So it is really important that we start to use different language, because obviously the language that we are using isn't really getting through and they're still focusing on these top 10 occupations no matter what we do. So in order to try to provide a solution for the problem, we've developed these 6 Cadi career clusters. I'm going to go over each of them in detail, but what you need to know right now is that each of them work together and we need all of these clusters within every workplace and organisation so that everything can get done. So the first cluster we're going to talk about are the linkers. These are the people who connect us with the things, the products, the services, the support that we need. And within the linkers, we include salespeople, they're the obvious ones, but also information officers, tour guides. I include mediators, support workers, social workers are all within that linker cluster. And we find they're really, really good at listening to people and then also helping them work out what the solution to their problem might look like. The informers are people who usually know quite a lot about something. They're quite specialists in their area and they use their knowledge and their skills in this area to help other people. So that includes people like accountants and lawyers. They might help you with your financial management or with managing some sort of commercial legal problem. But we also include people in here like dog trainers or horse whisperers, yoga instructors, dive instructors. All of these people know a lot about something and use that knowledge to help other people. Coordinators are people who keep everything running as they should. And you're going to find coordinators at every level of an organisation. So they'll be running the front desk, but they'll also be running the company. They do things like strategy, planning, scheduling, organising. They really are linchpins within every single organisation, the coordinators. The innovators are the people who are really, they're looking for solutions to problems. So they're designing, engineering, innovating, being creative. They might be building a new bridge, for example, or designing a new hospital. They also look at how we can plan our cities better. They also do things like program design. They might develop software or code, game development. All of these things fall within the innovator cluster. The makers are people who really like to be hands-on. They like to usually follow instructions, do things the right way, use equipment, tools, procedures. And obviously the obvious makers will be things like trades, electricians, plumbers, carpenters. But within makers, we include people who operate vehicles, so pilots, helicopter pilots, air traffic controllers, train drivers, tram drivers. These are all makers. People who produce our food, so chefs, bakers, butchers, they all fall within maker cluster. And even people like florists, people who are using their hands, using equipment all day long, these people tend to be makers. And the last cluster are our guardians. And guardians have a real interest in keeping us safe, well, and feeling our best. So we include, obviously, a lot of medical roles within guardians, so doctors, pharmacists, physiotherapists, but also people who help us maintain our fitness, so fitness instructors, yoga instructors, and we also include people who help us feel good about ourselves, so beauty therapists, hairdressers, tattoo artists, cosmetic nurses. All of these people fall within the guardians, as well as people who keep us safe. So we're talking about safety inspectors, quality insurance inspectors, OH&S officers, police forces, some of our military roles fall within the Guardians as well, paramedics, all of these people fall within the Guardian cluster. And we've taken a slightly different approach with the clusters. Rather than focusing just on interests, so what are you interested in, we're trying to take a more holistic approach. So we look at primarily these 4 factors. We look at the sort of common tasks that people share. We look at their skill sets, their technical and their transferable skill sets. So what kinds of things are they good at? We look at the kinds of environments that they work in. And for this, we talk about things like whether they're working in an office or a factory or an educational institution, for example, but also how are they working? So are they doing shift work? Are they having to travel to multiple different places for their work? Is their work risky for any reason, or is it uncomfortable? Are they outside? All of these things fall into that environment factor. And finally, we also think about the values that they bring to their work. So what is it that they want to achieve with their work? What do they get out of their work? And this can be really quite important when we start looking at motivational factors as well. So these are the holistic approach that we take and all the 4 factors that we look at. And we also think in clusters, not boxes. So it's really easy to try to put people into one occupation, one type of way of being, one box, and say this is where you fit. But that's not really how we are. As people, we're quite dynamic. We grow, we shift, we change, we move throughout our lives. And so when we think in these general clusters, we can allow a bit more flexibility, a little bit more dynamism, and we can see how people can be more than one thing at once and grow. The best way to get our heads around all of this is to have a look at a bit of an example. So within the education space, for example, if I was going to say to you, let's think about the people who work in education, most people would be able to tell me people like teachers or librarians, possibly the principal, sometimes the enrollment officer, and occasionally the school nurse. But the reality is that we need people from every cluster to keep every organisation running, including our schools and our universities. So we need people to handle public relations, help share the school's good news with the community. We need learning designers like myself. We need engineers who can develop new school buildings. We need even people like the IT department who keep the Wi-Fi running. And these clusters, what they actually do is they don't give us an answer. They don't give us a final endpoint, but they do give us a place to start. They give us new language to use and a new way of thinking about what might be possible that's out there. So for example, if I was a maker, I might be able to then take that knowledge and unpack my strengths a little bit more and kind of use those as a guide to see where I could go next. So how it works as an educator or as a facilitator is that there are 3 sort of things that you need to do first. The first is to understand the framework so that you feel comfortable when you're talking about it and you understand how it all works. It's not a particularly complex framework, but that might just mean taking a little bit of time to ensure that you understand it, reflect on your clusters and what that might mean for you before you move on. And the second step is to get comfortable with the language. So learn what each of the 6 clusters mean to you, understand how they operate, and feel comfortable using those terms with whether they're your students or your clients or whoever it is you're working with. Get to use those terms and feel comfortable with them. And then the last thing is to support the delivery of whoever in the school is or your organisation is leading this project. So if that's you, that's great. But if that's not, do what you can to make sure that their rollout is going really well and support the adaptation of the language to your context within what's going on within your place. So the way we find out about our clusters is with a quiz. It's a really short quiz. There are only 30 questions and it takes about 2 to 5 minutes to answer those questions. We ask you to choose your preferred option from 2, which can sometimes be tricky because sometimes we would prefer to pick both of the options or neither of the options. And that doesn't mean that anything's gone wrong. It's just a sign that you're, like we said before, a dynamic person and you could technically probably be within more than one cluster. And the aim of the quiz is not to give you an answer about yourself, not to unpack something that you didn't know about yourself. It's just to start conversations. So what I mean by that is that you can take whatever you like from the results, and so can the people that you're working with. And as long as you're able to then go off and have a conversation as a result of those, like this quiz and the answers that you've got in front of you, that's all that really matters. When we show you the results, that's just what they tend to look like. So we don't tell you you are specifically within these clusters and you aren't within those clusters. We just show you where you rated strongly and where you rated a little less strongly. So these are my cluster results. I can see from these that I'm a coordinator and I'm an innovator and I'm a little bit of an informer. I'm not so much of a guardian and a linker, even though I do like talking to people and I do like health and well-being. I don't prioritize them so much in my work. And I'm definitely not a maker, which helps me understand why I didn't like some of my earlier, more maker-aligned roles. And it also helps me understand why I'm not very comfortable or very happy with changing the light bulbs and things at home. So for you, the next thing you can do from here is to take the quiz. So you can do that open access at cadiclusters.com. If you've been given a link from your organisation or your school, please use that one instead, because then that will tie everything together. But if you don't have a link, you can still take the quiz. Just go to that address that's on the screen and follow the prompts and do that after this video. And what we're going to ask is that after you've done that quiz, take a minute to think about what these results mean, what your results mean. Do they tell you anything about your work preferences, or the decisions that you've made up until this point? And do they tell you anything about where you might want to go in the future? The next thing is to think about how we might use this in practice. So do these results and does this language give you any new opportunities for career conversations? Can you see any spaces where you could be building the clusters into your current practice? Any areas where they would be complementary or where they might even enhance what you're currently doing? And then finally, could you use the clusters to help think and reveal any invisible careers or occupations that you might be finding young people in your practice aren't thinking about? Can you help reveal those to them? So where to from here? Thank you for watching this really quick video. Take the quiz for yourself, start using the language, start thinking about how we can talk about some of those invisible jobs and start to unpack them for the people that we work with. And don't forget to use the quiz as a bit of a conversation starter, whether you've shared the quiz directly with somebody that you're working with, or if you just know that they know their clusters and you want to start having that conversation around them together.